Hi, my name is Susie and I'm the owner of the Speckled Loon. Welcome to my channel. It's been a hot minute since I posted a video, so I do appreciate you taking time to watch this one. If you like our DIY content, please consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. I have been busy away from YouTube for the past few months because it was craft fair season. I am busy non-stop October through December selling my products at craft shows all over North Dakota and Minnesota. I had a great year and then I took a little time off and now I'm ready to get back into making our DIY decor kits and YouTube videos. I'm so excited about this newest kit. I've named it the My Snowy Valentine DIY Decor Kit. It consists of 5 projects and each one is interchangeable between a winter and a Valentine's Day design. This video has all the instructions on how to complete the entire kit. I will have a link to purchase the kit in the note section below the video, as well as links to all the supplies I used to complete the projects. If you have any questions, I do have my email address linked below, as well as links to all our social media platforms for the Speckled Loon. With that, let's start the video and make the projects in the My Snowy Valentine DIY Decor Kit. I'm going to give you a brief overview of everything that comes in the kit when it arrives. You're going to get a kit in this nice little 9x6x3 box, and each project in the kit and the little extras will all be bundled up in their own individual clear plastic bags in order to keep all the items together for each project and make it easier for you to use. Each project in this kit is interchangeable. There's going to be a winter design and a Valentine's design, and this is a brief look of how they work. This is the box sign that has the interchangeable gnomes. That's the winter one, and you just pop it out, and then the box sign has a magnet in it that holds the design in, and you can switch it between the two. Our circle sign is reversible, so one side will have the winter design, the other the Valentine design, and it sits on this little stand that is included, and it makes it easy to switch it back and forth between the two designs. We have another box sign, a square one, and just like the other ones, again has a winter design and a Valentine's Day design that's held in with those discs and magnets. The crate that comes has little interchangeable tags that hang off. They have a little hook that goes through a hole in the tag, and you can do, again, Valentine or winter, or just do one on either side. And then the final project in the kit is an interchangeable tag garland, and each tag has 2 sides. They are attached to the garland with a little lobster claw, and then there's a winter double-sided tag and a Valentine's Day double-sided tag, and they just clip on with a little D-ring, and you can easily switch between the 2 tags. Let's go over all the items that you are going to need for supplies in your kit. Remember, we do not provide the paint and the glue and other things in order to keep the price of the kit down, and a lot of people have this stuff on hand already if you are a crafter. So the paints that I like to use is this Waverly brand of chalk paint that you can get at Walmart. You can get other brands of chalk paint. I just like the coverage it gives. And I use that crimson red. And if you don't like the big bottles, I have these smaller bottles like I have for the white. For my dark blue, I use this Home Decor chalk paint. That brand I got at either Michael's, Joann's, or Hobby Lobby. They're at all 3. And then for my light blue, you can mix white to your dark blue, but I use this Agave by Waverly. And then I use this steel gray from Waverly for some gray accents. If all you have on hand is kind of a store brand acrylic paint, that is fine too. You can use those. It just takes more coats to get good coverage. For brushes, All the paints go on really great with these little foam brushes for smaller items. I like these makeup daubers that you can get from any department store in the makeup section. And these little Q-tips with the flat end and the pointed end are good for small items too. This little mixing tray is from the Dollar Tree. You could also mix on a paper plate. You're going to need some painter's tape. I like to use these little craft sticks to scoop the paint out of the bottles for mixing. And I also like to use paint markers for the smaller items. Now, if you don't have paint markers on hand, feel free to go ahead and use a Sharpie for small items. It doesn't get the greatest coverage, but in a pinch, they do work. For the black marker that I used in this project, I use this old terracotta pot marker that I got years ago at Michael's, and it's still good. For the white, I like the coverage I get from this marker that I got from Hobby Lobby. And all the rest of the colors, I use this Arteza markers that you can get in a 40 pack from Arteza, or they are also on Amazon, and they are acrylic paint markers. Other things you're going to need is a pair of scissors to trim the string on our garland and a few other things. You are going to need some sort of glue. I suggest for inexpensive glue, this super glue, gel super glue that you get at Dollar Tree is great. You get two tubes for $1.25, and for small areas, just put it on with a toothpick. I will be using the Starbond Thick super glue. I like it. It's got this fine applicator tip. I will have it linked down below, but the Dollar Tree stuff does just as well. If you have wood glue on hand and prefer to use wood glue, by all means use it. It is easier to put on with one of these silicone brushes. I'll leave that link below. It gives you a more precise application. Now you can use clothespins to clamp your projects together while the glue is drying. I have this little pack from the Dollar Tree of clamps, but clothespins work well as well. And that's most everything you're going to need. A couple more items would be a pack of baby wipes for just some general cleanup. Paper towels work good too, but a wet baby wipe is also something we're going to use on a couple distressing methods that we're going to be using. And then you need a couple of paintbrushes with really stiff bristles to do a couple of the techniques that we're going to do. The techniques are optional, so if you don't have these on hand, don't worry about it. Our first project is the reversible circle winter and Valentine sign. One side will have a winter design, the other side will have Valentine design, and the little stand is included with it as well. What you're going to get for this is one base that will be painted on both sides, and then you will have a winter snowflake overlay and the word burr. And then on the other side that you will paint for Valentine's Day, you will have the ring frame, two X's, two hearts, and the little inserts for each heart as well. And these all come to you unpainted, and I will show you how to get it similar to how I painted it, but you can use whatever colors you would like. The first thing I do is I do paint that snowflake overlay with white, and I just used a makeup wedge to do it. You could also do it with the flat end of a Q-tip or a paint marker, whichever you prefer. But I just did 2 coats of the white with the makeup wedge. For the burr, I use that agave blue or any shade of blue or whatever color you want to do. And I just used the makeup wedge again. You could use the Q-tip, or if you have a paint marker, the color you want, just go ahead and use that. And for the Valentine's design, there is a ring frame. And for the ring frame, I just used a red marker, went around it, and it was painted. Super easy. I used that same red marker for the hearts. I also did the insert on the hearts in the red, and we're going to do that silver detail in the middle, and I will show you how that happens. And then for the X's, I just used a black paint marker for those. And we're going to do a gradient on the background. For the background on the winter sign, I did a dark blue and I did a special splatter effect on it with a stiff bristle brush and some white paint. You will see that faintly on here. It doesn't show up great on camera, but it's meant to mimic the effect of having a little bit of snow on there, or it kind of looks like a starry night, whatever you prefer. And I go ahead and I take my blue base that I painted with a sponge brush, and I just did one coat with this dark blue. I think it's called ocean blue or midnight blue, something like that, from Home Decor. It's just a dark navy blue. And I go ahead and I take that round blue circle and I am going to put it in a small little box just to kind of contain that splatter. You'll see on the little palette in that left-hand circle of the palette, I have got a little bit of white paint in there. I'm taking that stiff little chip brush that I cut very short on the bristles, and I'm just running my thumb over it to get a splatter effect. And then I just continue doing that till I have the splatter effect that I like. Just, you want a very dry brush for this so you don't get too much splatter on there. Once I have that how I like it, I'm just going to set that aside. I'm going to go to work on that word burr. And same thing, I'm taking a smaller stiff bristle brush and I'm just dipping it in the white, then dipping it off a bit and running it over the tops of each letter, the sides a bit, and then I'm going to do on the bottom as well. So it kind of looks like it has been sitting out in the snow a bit. If you get it on a little thick, that's fine. It kind of looks like snow. Another thing that would work on this would be puffy paint if you had that. I didn't have any on hand, so I just used my white chalk paint and it worked fine. So that's all the pieces for the burr that are painted and ready to roll. And we'll be putting this together after we finish up the pieces for the X's and hearts on the Valentine's Day design. So what we're going to do here is we are going to do that gradient effect. I take some red paint, and then I mix a little bit of white in with it, a tiny bit in the first red one and more white in the second red one. That will give me eventually a light pink and a dark pink. I'm just mixing it up with a toothpick or a Q-tip, whatever I have on hand. Then I take that makeup wedge and I take my light pink paint and I'm going across the bottom of the circle and kind of going up toward the middle. Once I'm at the middle, I'm going to switch sponges and do the dark pink, and I go right over the light pink while it's wet intentionally, so it will blend together in a more gradient-like or gradual shift of color. I keep going over it till I have the blend that I like. I do end up doing 2 coats of this just to get good coverage, but this is what you'll have in the end, and I let that dry. While that is drying, I go ahead and I do use the black paint marker on the X's, and I use the red paint marker on the hearts and the inside of the hearts. And then I'm going to do an outline technique on both the inside and outside of the hearts. I will show it on the smaller hearts, and I do the same thing to the bigger hearts. I just don't show it 4 times. On my other one, I painted them in solid silver, but I'm just going to do an accent on these ones. Now, to work with the smaller parts, I like to take a piece of painter's tape, and then I just make a loop with it, and I stick it right onto my plate. And what that does, it gives me a little sticky surface to put my small items on to work with, and it just makes it easier. And then I'm just showing in close how I go around the outside of each heart. And I'm doing this on the inside accent and on the outside piece as well. If I have a little flub, I just take my red paint marker, go over the silver that I don't want, and then I just continue outlining the second one as well. I set those aside for a couple minutes to dry, and then they will be done. And you can see how when you put them in now, it gives you a nice little definition between the inner and outer part of the heart. So now we have everything all painted. It is time to put everything together. Now with this gradient, I need to decide what I want to be the top and what I want to be the bottom. and I'm just kind of looking at it, and I always try to do the part where it matters, that it's the top and the bottom first, and then I will do the other side. So I am doing the Valentine design first. You can see I've got the hearts outlined on the outside with the silver as well on the bigger parts, and it sets it off a little better. I like to do a dry fit. The first thing I do is put the frame on to make sure that I don't put any parts where the frame should be. I take my glue and I do a little ring, little dots all the way around the ring and little streaks of it. Again, you can go ahead and just take your gel super glue and put it on with your toothpick to get that same effect. You just need super tiny dots of it because you don't want to have a lot of glue oozing out. If you do, you just have to wipe it up with a baby wipe right away. So I am taking them, I'm setting the ring in my left hand, the backing or backer in my right hand, and I am lining them up exactly before I press them together, top to bottom, left to right, with my hand, using the table and my hand as a guide. Once it is perfectly aligned, I just take my little clamps. You can take your clothespins, or you can just press it together really, really hard if you need to. Then I'm doing an approximate placement of my X's and my outside hearts. And once I have them where I like them, I go ahead and apply my glue to the first X. Then I do the same thing with the first heart on top. And then I am going to put a little bit of glue on the inside of that heart and lay the inner part in there and clamp it down. And I just repeat the process on the bottom the same way with the heart and the final black X. Once that's all dry and ready to roll, it's time to just flip it over and do the other part of the sign, the winter design. And what I'm doing here is making sure I've got my top at the top, and I'm going to flip the sign over and work with the snowflake to see what do I want at the top. Do I want it straight up and down? Do I want it at an angle? I decide I want it straight up and down, and that's what I do. So I do a dry fit. Then I go ahead and flip over my white overlay and start adding, again, around the edges and a little bit in the middle, some glue. Same thing, putting one side in my left hand, the other in the right, and just kind of lining them up using the table as my guide, and finally clamping it so that it will have time to set. Then I just play with the placement of the burr accent. And what I want to do here is just move the clamps to get them out of the way and then figure out where I want that word. And that's kind of where I want it. It looks like it's hard to read, but that's more just on camera. If you go ahead and just do it how you want it, and it's easier when it's off camera to read it. But I apply the glue to the burr, and then I've got some longer clamps that kind of help that hold it in place. They were something I had in my yarn stash. And once it's all done and dry, I take the clamps off, assemble the stand, and it is ready to display. Our next project is our interchangeable Winter and Valentine's Day Gnome box sign. And this is everything that is going to come in your kit to create these two designs, one for Valentine's Day, one for winter. And everything is held together with this little magnet that's going to come with your kit. And you just put it in the middle with this little adhesive, and it goes right there. And then each sign will have a metal disc on the back. It's just a canning lid, and there's adhesive on there. You will put on the back. Then you just insert either sign, turn it over, tap it out, and put the other sign in. And you can display whichever one you want for the season. The box sign, there is also sandpaper in your kit to get any rough edges off of it. It's made of wood, and there might be a couple rough edges. Each one comes with a beard, a nose, and a hat accent, something for the gnome to hold, a set of two little hands, and two little feet, and of course the rectangular base for each gnome to sit on. So for the smaller pieces, you can use paint markers again, or the makeup wedges, or the Q-tips, whatever is going to be the easiest for you to use, or whatever you have on hand. For our larger pieces, you can use again the makeup wedges or the sponge brushes, whatever you have on hand. And for the actual box sign itself, I use a product called Antique Wax, but you can also use either watered down brown paint as well to make a stain, or if you have stain on hand, just use that. I like to stain mine brown. You can leave it or do whatever you want to that box sign. I am doing a staining method with the Antique Wax, and then I am going to use the sandpaper that comes with your kit to distress it up a little bit after I get it all painted. But the first thing I do is I take up any rough edges with the sandpaper, and you'll notice there's a little twine hanger on this and a sawtooth hanger. I'm just going to leave those on. You can pull them off if you want, but there's really no need. And I'm just taking a piece of painter's tape and taping that twine hanger to the back. You will see your magnet's got a little adhesive strip. You're going to remove that blue strip and just put it right in the middle like I did here. I already had it attached on this one, so I'm just showing you how I did it. And then you'll see how your metal discs that you put on the back of the base will just snap right in there. The next thing you're going to do is shake up whatever paint you've got. If you've got brown paint, just water it down a little bit or wipe it off with a wet baby wipe right after you paint it while the paint is still wet. This wax I like to use because it takes longer for it to dry, so I get a little more working time with it. And I'm just going around the very front of the frame and the sides. I am not putting anything on the inside, and that gives it more definition. Then I'm taking my wet baby wipe. You can also use a wet paper towel or a wet rag, and I am just going to wipe, going with the grain down and across, and then on all surfaces where I did the wax. Blends it in, gives it more an appearance of a stain. Finally, I'm taking my sandpaper and I'm just going kind of aggressively along the edges and the corners to give it that distressed look, and you can kind of see up close how that looks. I repeat the process on all sides, and then I do it on the inside edges as well. And once I have the look that I like, I give it a quick wipe down or blow off any excess dust, and then we are done working with the box frame portion of this project. Then we are going to paint each side how we want. I'm going to show you how I do everything on the Valentine's Day side, and then you will see how it works also on the blue side for the winter design. The first thing I'm going to do is adhere the disc to the back of that gray base that I just painted. I use that steel gray. You just remove the adhesive strip and place it in the middle. That's all there is to it. Then I painted the base of the gnome red. You can use your brush or your makeup wedge. I also painted red the little heart that it holds. I accidentally painted red the heart that goes on top. We'll fix that later and make it pink. Painted the beard white, and then I used my black marker on the little hands and the feet. And I'll show you how I use the ballerina pink marker on the nose. If you have a different color you want to use, like a light brown or something else, that's fine too. You could also kind of just leave it unpainted if you want it on the nose, but this ballerina pink kind of gives it a bit of a flesh color to it, and that's the color I prefer for the nose on my gnome. And I did both of them like that. So I am going to take a little bit of the pink paint that I had, and I'm going to do a little edge detail on the heart he holds to look like icing, and I'm going to paint the pink heart that goes on top of his hat. I snip off any dry area of the sponge, and then I have a new sponge to use. You get a lot of life out of these little makeup wedge sponges. If they dry up, you just snip off and go. So now I'm just dipping it in that pink paint that I mixed for the earlier project, and I'm just quickly painting one coat of pink over that red heart that I made red by accident. Then I'm going to take the more narrow part of the wedge And I am going to dip that in the pink paint and go around the edge of the heart. I'm not going to do the little bumps where the hands go. I want those to stick on there quite well, but I'm just doing around the edges of the heart so it looks like almost an iced cookie. Finally, I'm going to let all that dry, and I'm going to show you the colors that I use on the blue. I did the agave blue on the base. Same thing with this. It's going to have a metal disc on the back. And then I do that same splatter technique that we did earlier on the dark blue gnome base. And I did the white on the beard. And then I did the agave blue on the hands and snowflake and the small accent for the hat. Again, ballerina pink marker on the nose, black on the hands and on the feet. And that's all done. So here's again, just quickly removing that backing and putting the adhesive back on the metal disc to the back of the base. Then I'm going to do that same splatter technique on the gnome base that we did earlier. I just sped it up as it is repetitive. Once I have the splatter how I like it, then I just set that aside to dry. Once everything's dry, it's time to start assembling our winter and Valentine designs. Don't worry about what beard goes on what. They're the exact same, so they will go on there just fine. I am going to assemble everything on the Valentine gnome and then show you how it looks on the winter gnome as well, so we don't go over everything twice because they are going to go on exactly the same. So I just like to take my beard and put a little bit around the perimeter. You will see when you line it up, there are points of the beard just below the hat where it lines up exactly. So you know exactly where to put that beard. So it looks perfect on your gnome. So I like to turn mine this way, and you can see I'm just taking my time to line it up. And I'm just zoomed in here a little bit so you can see, but that little point on the side of the gnome base and the beard line up exactly. Once I have how it is supposed to line up and it looks good to me, then I press it down to adhere it and I get out my clamps. Until then, you have a few seconds to work with your glue, and then you can move it and make sure it's perfect. So I clamp that, set that aside. I do the same exact thing to the blue gnome. Next, I remove the clamps and I'm going to continue gluing on pieces. I like to do the shoes next. They go on the bottom. You'll see how they exactly line up with the right and left, where the little point is and the narrow part is the heel. And I like to do a dry fit before I glue anything on, just to be sure. I take my left shoe and I put a little glue on the back of it. Just a couple drops is all you need. Then I secure it in place with a clamp, and I do the exact same thing on the right shoe. And you can see I do the same thing on the blue gnome. With my clamps, the next thing I'm going to do is the little accent on each gnome's hat. The Valentine's Day has that pink heart. I just do a couple of drops of glue and just kind of center right above the nose. Same with the little accent of the snowflake on the winter gnome. Next, I'm going to do the noses. Same process. And the nose just lines up at that little bump right on top of the beard. So I put my glue on and just press it down tight. Do the same thing on the winter gnome. Next, I'm going to, before I put the heart or the snowflake on the gnome's beard, I am going to adhere the little hands. I like it so the thumbs are pointing up on the hands. You can have it however you'd like it. I just feel like with the thumbs up, it just looks more natural. And so I go ahead and do just the small dot of glue on the left hand, and you can see that little bump out on the heart. That is perfectly shaped for the hand to line up, the little glove to line up right on there. I take the little right mitten and I do the same thing. Once I have that all adhered, I just let that dry. I do the same exact thing on the snowflake. Then it's time to attach that to the beard. I like it to line up with those little points right there that I'm showing. It lines up perfect with that. It gets it centered. You could put it on crooked though too, because it does look cute, kind of kitty wampus. Do a few drops of glue, press it down, give it a good hold, and let that clamp hold it while I also do the blue one, and your gnomes are complete. Then I like to take my base and just kind of do a dry fit on the base to make sure I have it where I want it. And then I take the gnome, flip it over, do glue a good amount on the hat, all around the base, sides, and in the middle, clamp it down, and I do the same thing on the blue. Then you can tap in and out and interchange your designs, and this project is complete. Next up is our interchangeable square Winter and Valentine's Day box sign. And here's everything that comes with this one. You've got 5 little hearts, 4 little X's, a tic-tac-toe grid, a line that goes across it, and a base on the Valentine's Day side. On the winter side, there's a base, a snowflake overlay, 2 words, and 2 hearts. This is what the Valentine's Day set looks like, all put together. And this is what the winter sign looks like, all put together. You can use whatever colors you want. I'm going to show you how I did it with the colors I chose, but again, it's your project and finish it however you want. This box sign also comes with the 2 little metal discs, like the other one did, that are going to go on the back. There's your adhesive blue backing. And same thing with the magnet with the blue backing you remove to put it in. You're going to use the same piece of sandpaper that we did in our previous project. The first thing I did was I did remove that adhesive backing and get the magnet in the middle of the box sign. And again, I taped down that twine hanger just like I did on the rectangular gnome sign, just to get it out of the way. And I'm going to finish this one the exact same way that I did the previous box sign. So I'm going to scuff it up and get off all that, anything loose or rough. Remove that dust and then get it all painted up with my sponge brush in that antique wax brown, wiping it off while it's still wet. Again, you can use whatever stain color that you want or just leave it natural. Finally, I am taking my sandpaper and going around all the inner and outer edges of that frame and giving that distressed look that gives it kind of a natural, I guess, farmhouse finish. First, we are going to go ahead and put together and paint all of our items for the tic-tac-toe grid. I used steel gray on the base, the square base. That's going to be the bottom piece, I guess, if you will, on our sign. I did a white makeup sponge and white paint all around for the grid, and I did do 2 coats on that. For the X's and the hearts, I used red on the hearts and black on the X's and the line that goes across in a paint marker. So we are going to expose that adhesive backing and affix our disc to the middle of the back. It doesn't have to be exact, just as close to the middle as you can make it. And then we will adhere our tic-tac-toe grid. So I'm just doing a tiny bit in the middle and then glue all the way around the back, and the edges. And I'm taking the overlay in my left hand, the base in my right hand, and repeating that same process of lining everything up exactly, just like we did on our circle sign. If you have any excess, I just take either a wedge or a baby wipe and wipe it. And I like to, again, take my clamps. You can use clothespins to clamp everything down. I take my hearts and my X's. I'm laying out this way. You can lay them out however you want. I just like to get them in there approximately where I want them to go. Then it's easier to just glue them on one by one. So you will just do the small amount of glue on each one, press them down to adhere, and continue till your whole grid is filled how you like. The next part we will do is that line that goes across diagonally, and we are going to take that, and it's very easy to line up. Just line it right straight across the grid diagonally and it will work. I do a small amount and give it a good press, and then I'm going to set that aside to dry and firm up while I work on my winter base. But that's what it looks like in the box sign. So the winter sign is, again, I use that dark blue on the base, and I did that same splatter effect that we did on the previous two projects, excuse me. So I am going to also do the agave blue on the hello and the little hearts, and I do the dark blue on the winter and the white on the snowflake overlay, again with the dauber or makeup wedge, and do 2 coats. For the dark blue on the winter, if you have a marker, that will work just fine as well. I am going to do a silver accent on the hearts for the sign, just like we did on those red hearts earlier. I put them on the paper plate with the tape attached, and I take my silver marker and I do a quick outline of each heart. And if you make a little mistake on this, part of the heart is covered up, so it doesn't really matter, but I just like how it sets them apart a little bit from the background with the silver. It gives that nice wintry, cool look to it with the silver metallic. Once that's done, they'll look similar to that. And then it's going to be time to put the accent that I like to put on the winter. I take a little bit of white paint, and you can see I do that same snowy effect we did on the burr on the circle sign. I get my stiff bristle brush and white paint, dip it in, and I go kind of heavy on the accent on this to really make it look like snow and give a little dimension to that dark blue paint. I really like the look of it. I did it on the top, and I did it on the bottom too, so it looked like it was kind of tucked into a snowdrift. And then I even did, after I had the bottom done, did a little bit on the face of the letters too, just some light distressing here and there, just to kind of give it that wintry look all over. And that's the final look of how it goes. You can do as much or as little distressing as you like, or not at all with the white accents, but I like how it looks. I do a very light brushing also on the hello, just to give it, again, a little more definition, and that's what it looks like when it is done. So I am going to adhere my metal disc to the back. Again, it's just a canning lid with an adhesive strip. Then I do a dry fit, and then I glue my snowflake backer onto the snowflake overlay onto the blue backer. And same thing as previously, you just line it up best as you can using your hands, wiping off any excess glue. Once you have it lined up perfectly, you're going to want to clip it. You want to make sure these are lined up perfectly so they'll fit in the frame. You don't want anything hanging off the sign. Otherwise, it will not go in your frame very well. So I am going to play with the positioning of my letters, and how I'm doing the word winter is I'm mounting it on top of the hearts. So it's kind of like a handle, so it makes it easy to get in and out of that frame. You don't have to do it that way, but this is just the way I chose to do it, and I want to make sure that that word winter is tucked inside the frame as well as the hearts, and nothing is hanging out. Once I have the placement how I like, I glue and clamp the hearts on and let that dry really well on that white base. Once that is completely dry, I can also then mount the winter on, but first I do the word hello. And then I'm going to remove my clamps off the hearts and get the word winter on below. And again, just lining it up to make sure that I don't have anything hanging over the sides when I place it down. Then the word winter is adhered. I clamp it for good measure, and that one is done as well. And then you can change your signs in and out of your square base. And this project is ready for you to display with your seasonal decor. Our next project is a fun one. It is our Winter and Valentine interchangeable crate. It is a little crate that has little tags that hang off the front. This is what it looks like all put together. And then there are two tags that come with it. The one will have a snowflake on it and the other will have a heart, and there's little hooks for them. And I give you two extra tags too for you to paint however you want. But basically the little hook goes through the slot at the top of the tag, hangs down, and then clips right to the top of the crate. I'm going to show you how I painted everything up, and then how to glue the little crate together. It's just held together with glue, and it's very easy to do. And you can see how easy it is to switch out the tags on this little crate. And it's something you could use if you didn't do the little snow effect year-round with various pieces of seasonal decor. And that's why I give you extra tags so you can decorate it for multiple things. So this is the bottom of the crate. That is a front and a back side, the two sides, and everything interlocks and is going to be glued onto the bottom. And I'm going to show you how we do all the pieces and where to apply the glue and how it goes. And then these little planks on the side go on where the corners meet. And that kind of firms everything up. And when it's done, you have a sturdy little box. So the first thing we're going to do is, I'm going to show you how I painted it. I painted the antique wax method that we've been using on the wood on this. So basically I did antique wax on everything and then wiped it off with a baby wipe till I had something resembling of this. And I did our little white distressing or faux snow at the top, just like we did on all our previous videos on the words, like we just did on the winter word of our box sign. So I just dip my stiff bristle brush in a little bit of white paint, and I go across the top of each item. The top is always going to be flat. As you can see, the bottom of each item has the little notches in it. I also did the same thing on all the little side planks as well. And you don't have to do anything to that bottom piece. You just do it to the side pieces, the front back piece, and then the little planks. And that's what it looks like once I have it stained up a little or distressed up a little bit. And this is what one of the planks will look like with the white on top of it. So the next thing you need to do is there's a little bit of painting on your tag bases, and I did mine white, but you can do whatever color you'd like. And I painted my snowflake blue and my heart red. And this is what everything looks like all painted up with the accent on it and everything. Once you have it all painted up and it's good and dry, then it's time to start putting everything together. That is the bottom. We're going to work on the sides and the fronts with the bottom. And those are your planks, just so you know when I'm talking about what piece that we are going to put on. This is what I'm going to be calling the front. And there's these little notches on the bottom of it that fit perfectly into the notches on the base bottom piece. You can see that. So we are going to put glue on either side of that tab on the bottom piece and right down the middle on that skinny strip. And then the sides go on like this. You can see the side goes right on. It's got little tabs as well. But first I like to do the front, the bigger part first. And so I am lining that up to just show you how then the side is going to snap right into that front piece on those little indentations. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but if you follow along with your pieces, you'll see how it goes. And you're just going to kind of hold it together. So I'm getting out my glue now that I can see that everything fits good. And I put glue on either side of that tab on the base and down the middle of that long strip. And then I go on either side of the tab again, because that is where it is going to have contact with the other piece. So I take my front piece, I lay it right onto those slots and hold it quite firmly so it get that good right angle. And while that is happening, I'm putting just a small dab of glue in the notches. I'll turn that so you can see the notches right there, and then again on either side of the tab and down the middle of that side piece of the bottom. Taking my side piece, I'm putting the little tabs on that left-hand side right into that front and lining up the tabs on the bottom with the notches and holding that tight for a good while before I proceed on to finish and repeat and do the rest of the crate. Once that's good and dry, I am going to do the other long piece, which I'm going to be calling the back of the crate. And same thing is I will put glue on either side of the tab of the base piece. And then I'm going to put glue in the little notches there that are going to attach to that side piece. And lining up all my notches and pressing to adhere so it's good and stuck. And everything just fits right in like a puzzle if you're doing it and getting everything lined up correctly. Then I'm doing again glue in the little notches on the piece and then going along the bottom on either side of the tab and in the middle. And this one just drops right into place. And I'm just letting that set up nicely before I proceed on with the planks. The planks I like to line up on the narrow end pieces first. And I take one of each plank, it doesn't matter which one, because they're all the same size, and I line it up with the top and the edge perfectly. And you can see that I'm just kind of lining, before I press it, I'm just using my thumbs and fingers to make sure everything's lined up. So I'm doing one side, and I'm going to repeat the process on the other side of that short end. And you'll see why we do the short ends here first in a minute. But I'm just giving it a good press. Now I'm going to take the other plank for that short end and do the exact same thing. I'll speed this up a bit because it is repetitive. And again, making sure I'm aligned at the top and aligned along that side perfectly. Now I'm going to take along the front end and do a plank, and I'm going to go all the way over to the right, and it's going to cover up and be flush with the one that we just did on the short end. And I'll turn it so you see in a minute, but I align it with the top, and again I'm lined on the right hand side so the edges are flush. And it kind of covers up that gap, and you can see from the top how it looks and there how it looks. And I'm going to repeat that on the other plank that we adhered. So I'll turn it, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the back side, lining it up. Then I'm repeating the process again on the other narrow end. But you will see, I'm just taking time to line that up. And we are halfway done with our planks. I'm just going to turn it over and start working on the other short end. And I pick a plank. And just remembering that I have the snowy part on top when I glue it down. I do that side and repeat on the other side. And we're going to do the same exact lining up and gluing as we did previously. And if they're on a little crooked, it doesn't really matter, but I just like mine to look like a good straight flush box, if you will. Once that crate is all done and we have all the planks adhered, then we are going to go work on our discs. Remember, I gave you 2 extra. If you paint on them, you can put stickers on them. You can do whatever you want with your extra ones. It's just fun to have a couple extras if you want. Basically, I am going to take and do the snowflake first, and I kind of lined it up so the middle of the snowflake is right lined up with that middle notch. And then I just press it down. You can use your clamps if you need to, but such a small piece, just a little press usually does it. And the second one I do is the heart, just 2 or 3 drops of glue, and line up that middle of the heart with the notch that's in the middle as well. Once that's done, I decide that I want to do a little white distressing. I'd forgotten to do that already. So I just take my dry brush and I do it while it's adhered. You could do it beforehand if you want, but that is what my heart looks like when I have the distressing on it. And then again, the little hook, the notch goes right into that hole, and then it just hangs right over the top of the crate. I filled my crate up with Hershey's Hugs and Kisses. I thought they fit perfectly with both the winter and the Valentine theme with the silver in there, and that is what it looks like filled up, and this project is done. I'm really excited about this next project. It's been living inside my brain as an idea for months and months, and I finally figured out how I was going to execute it. This is everything that you are going to get for our interchangeable garland with double-sided tags. You are going to get 15 white and 15 natural beads that are going to be strung onto the tassel, and then there is going to be a lobster claw that you put at the end that's going to fit into little D-rings for our tags to be hung off of. This is the Valentine's tag all finished up, and you can see how it just goes right on there with that lobster claw. And then the other one is our double-sided winter tag with a snowflake on one side and the tree on the other. And you get the ribbon and everything to make this. And it's a very versatile piece. I want your feedback on it because I think it's kind of fun. I don't know if anybody else thinks it's as cool as I do, but I really like it. So to get started, you're just going to unwind your tassel string. The string's already on there. And then I have included a little twisty bread tie that you can use for a needle. It's the easiest thing to use for a needle that I have found. If you find that it's too thick, you can trim it down on either side of the little wire that's in the middle. But I was able to get it through without trimming it. And you are going to just bend it in half and make it be like a needle and put your string right in the middle of it there. And then you can start stringing on your beads. We are going to do alternating beads. They're very easy. There's white and natural. So you'll just start out with one and put it all the way down to the tassel and then do the next bead just so it is every other bead in alternating colors. I start off with the natural bead and bring it all the way down to the end. And then I follow it up with the white bead, and I just keep doing that till I have it all strung. You should have 15 of each, so 30 total beads for this part of the garland. And this is what it looks like with 2, with 10 of them strung on, with 20 beads, and then with all 30. Once you have them all strung, then we are going to get the little lobster claw attached. And you will see on the lobster claw there's a very tiny little hole at the end of it, and that is what is going to have the string growth go through. And you can see that right there, and you will zoom in here shortly. And you basically just need to tie that off and get that on so it's strung onto your garland. If you have quite a bit of excess string, because I give you way more than you need, I trim some off before I do this step, so I have about a foot of spare string. That's about all you need. And then I get my little twisty tie needle back on there, and you'll see that little hole at the bottom of your lobster claw. So you're going to have to twist a little bit, but you can get your bread tie needle through there and pull it. And then you want to pull it all the way up so it meets that bead, and almost like the little hole rests right into the hole of the bead. And you want to pull it nice and tight and get this part nice and tight so you have it well attached. And then I kind of wrap the string around and just feed it through that hole again, and I'm just trying to keep it as tight as possible. I'm going slow here so you can kind of see what I'm doing, but basically I wrap the string once around and then I bring it through the lobster claw hole again, and I'm just pulling it really tight so I can keep it tight. And that's half the battle with this, but I slowed this way down. It will not take you this long to do it. But I just want you to see what I'm attempting to do to get it good. So now I am putting it through that lobster claw hole again, and I will continue to pull it tight. If it gets loose, I'll just pull it back tight again. I'm continuing, and it got a little loose there. So before I pull it 100%, I'm just going to wiggle it back down and get it right into that hole. Once I have that tight, then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to feed it up through 3 or 4 beads again. And you'll see that's what I do is I take it and I go to that first bead and I feed it through. And then I go up through a couple more beads till I'm at a white bead again, because I am going to tie a knot off and hide it within that bigger white bead, basically. So I go up one more. Then I'm going to remove my little my little wire needle, and I'm going to cut off the excess again so I don't have as much to work with. And I'm going to tie one slip knot, or one, I guess, square knot, excuse me, and pull. Then I'm going to flip it over and make sure that I still have my bead string in the middle. You can see that string in the middle. And I'm going to do a full square knot at this point. One, pull it tight, and do a second one, and pull it tight. That way I basically have a knot around the middle string, and it's good and secure. And then I am going to take my scissors and trim it rather close and just slide those beads back up until that knot is underneath that white bead. And then that is what you have for your finished base piece of the garland. And now we're going to get to work on the tags. The tags are all double-sided and they are all painted. So what I did with my tags is I painted both bases white on both sides, as you can see. And this is and I used red on my little red parts and gray paint on the little gray parts. You could use a marker as well. For the blue, I used that Agave blue again, but if you have a blue marker you want to use, go ahead. I did some silver accents on that heart, and then I did white on both sides of the tag. Did 2 coats of white too. The first thing I'm going to do before I do anything else is I'm going to take a marker and I am going to color my D-rings. I'm doing the one for the winter in blue. I am doing the Valentine's Day one in black. And then once it's dry, I'm going to flip it over and do the second side as well. And I just think it gives it a nicer finished look when the D-rings are painted, but that is totally up to you. But it does show, so I like to have them painted. And I just think it gives it a nicer finished look. Then we're going to start gluing all our pieces onto our tags. The first tag we will do is the winter tag. And like I said, both sides are painted white. And this little snowflake overlay adheres, lines right up with the hole and everything. You just want to do a dry fit. And then the little tree is just going to go right in the middle toward the bottom. So to do the snowflake overlay, I'm doing a little dab of glue on the middle of the snowflakes and then around the edge of the tag overlay. Then I take the overlay in my left hand, the tag in my right, get them on a nice flat surface, line all my edges up perfectly, and then I will clamp it once and press down to kind of adhere it, and then clamp it and wipe off any excess glue as I go. So I've got my clamps that I'm going to put on, and then I will work on the opposite side, which is the little tree. So I just kind of put the clamps on either side so I can work on the tree while it's drying on the other side. So I do just a small bit of glue towards the top and bottom bases and all the corners of the tree. And I press to adhere that in the center, making it as straight as I can. And I did use my silver marker to color in the little heart that's going to go in the insert. So I just put a small amount of glue in that cutout for the heart and tap that in there. And that is ready to go once I give it a good press. The next thing we'll do is get our winter heart going. So the one side has got this little heart border on the bottom and the X and O. I just put a small drop of glue inside the solid hearts right in the center and just line it up towards the center and bottom of the tag and give it a clamp. And then I'm going to do the gray XO with the red XO on top. So I just lay them down where I want them to be, and I go ahead and glue each the gray and red XO on, lining them up in the center. I'm just eyeballing it. It's pretty easy to do. And if it's not exact, they're kind of crooked letters anyway, so it really doesn't matter. Then for the opposite side, it's the hearts that spell out the word love. You can do them this square way. I prefer to line them up down the middle and do them that way. So I just leave them all lined up, and then I glue in that bottom one nice and straight, and I build every other heart right on top of that one, inserting the tip of the heart into the top of the heart that's right below it. And I alternated my colors, red and gray. You can do yours however you like, but this is the final one I'm gluing on. So now this tag is all assembled, and next we need to work on the little D-ring and the strings and beads for each tag. So I'm going to take the D-ring, and each tag has got a little piece of string, and I'm going to do one side then the other so you can see how that works. So you're going to unravel your string, and then you want to double it up. So you're going to take your ends so that they meet. So just give it a quick unwind. Hopefully there's no knots, and you're going to find both your ends and just line them up. And then you're going to have a other end will be a loop like that. You are going to take your loop and you are going to feed it through on the flat end of the D-ring, keeping the loop intact. And then you are going to feed your two ends through the loop, just like so, and then pull it tight so it is looped on over that flat part of your D-ring. Perfect. Nice and tight. Then you're going to take your beads and figure out the order you want your beads to be in. This is the order that I decided to do. You can figure out whatever order you want yours to be in. But I did do the string over the other D-ring as well, as you can see. So I wanted to go, I've got a dark blue, a light blue, and a white. So I wanted to go dark blue, light blue, or excuse me, dark blue, white, light blue, dark blue, light, white, and then light blue. Excuse me. And that is how I decided that I wanted my beads to be in the order. And there I have it messed up, and so I'm going to fix it. There we go. All right, so then I'm going to take out that same pipe cleaner I used for a needle, or not pipe cleaner, twist tie that I used for a needle, and I am going to attach it to the D-ring in a minute. I am also doing my order for my red. I got ahead of myself. I go a red bead, a white bead, then the plaid, red, white, then plaid. Your beads may vary a little bit in size and color, but they will be similar to what I am showing here. So I've got both my D-rings. I've got my little wire needle ready to roll. I will do the blue one first, and I'm just wrapping that needle middle around the string, and then I am doing my dark bead and pulling it all the way to the end of the D-ring, repeating with the white, the light blue, and then the second course of the dark blue, the white, and the light blue. Now that is ready to roll. And we are going to feed it through the back of the tag, wrap the string around behind itself, and back through the front hole of the tag to get it on there nice and secure. Then we're going to do that same process where we feed the string back up through the beads. So I am going to pull it nice and tight, and then I can leave a little slack because I need room for the ribbon. But I'm going up and through and then cutting off the excess, and I stop at the white bead, and I'm doing that same process where I tie 1/2 of a square knot in the front, and I pull it super tight. Then I flip it over, and I do the 2 ties of the square knot. So 1, pull it tight, 2, pull it tight, and then do a snip. And then I'm burying the excess right inside of that white bead. And the last step is to do our ribbon, but we will do that after we do our red. So I'm doing a red bead, a white bead, a checked, a red, white, and checked, doing the same exact thing, knotting it around and feeding it back up through. And I just have this sped up because it's the same exact process that we just did. 1 tie, 2 tie. After the flip, snip, and that's ready to go. So now we just need to work on our ribbon. I've got kind of a glittery blue ribbon for the winter and kind of a glittery red ribbon for the Valentine's Day. I just do a simple knot, and then I fold the ribbon in half, and you cut up toward the top, and I get that bird's beak effect. And I am taking a little bit of my glue and running it along to keep it from fraying. If you have any fray check on hand, the same thing works, or a thin bead of any kind of glue, and you just let it set, and then your ribbon won't fray. And I do the same thing on the red, and then your tags are done. And then to change it in and out, you just clip the lobster claw on the D-ring, you have your winter, and then you have your Valentine, and all your projects for this set are now complete.